Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. It's Tuesday, time to check out some new releases that are coming out this Friday, July 11th. It's about 500 albums are coming out this week. I got 12 on my list for today. There's a bunch of links down below. You got links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you check all that out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. Like I said in the intro, it's about 500 albums are coming out this week, but I'm only going to talk about 12 of them today. So if something you're looking forward to I don't have on here, make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing. And like always, if you're unable to find these in your local brick and mortar stores, they should all be available online. I'll put links down below in the comment section for them. You can also always go over to the Vinyl Den store on Amazon. Got all the new releases on there, pre-orders, there's deals on records, all sorts of cool stuff to check out. First album for this week is one by a band that, a lot of people out there might not be all that familiar with, but it's a new album from Wet Leg, Moisturizer. It's their second studio album. It's running about $28. So I was really impressed with the British rock band's debut album in, I think it was 2022 when their first album came out. And commercially it did really well. Hit number, I think it was number 14 on the Billboard 200. I'm interested to see what they do on this album, though, because a lot of times when a band has early success like that, it can be kind of difficult to follow that up. And a lot of times, they're on an independent label, so it's not like they've got major label pressure on them, but there's pressure, there can be pressure on the band to try to evolve their sound, to try to do something a little bit differently. And if they stray too far from the original sound, they can alienate fans. So it's a second album from a band like that can be difficult. So I'm interested to see what they do on this new one. They've already released 3 singles off the new album, and Catch These Fists I think is probably the best of the 3, but I like the direction of these songs. They sound really similar to what they did on their debut album. So like I said, it's one I'm looking forward to. I haven't pre-ordered a copy of it, but I'll stream it this week and check it out. You've also got a reissue of the self-titled album from 311. Came out back in 1995. It was their 3rd studio album. So this is the 30th anniversary release they're doing for this one. 2 LP release. It's going to be on Blue Smoke vinyl. It's going to run you about $41. This is the band's big breakthrough album. It hit number 12 on the Billboard 200. All Mixed Up is on this album. Down is on there, which is probably their 2 biggest known songs. And for this new anniversary release, they've got 7 additional bonus tracks on there, which all of them were unreleased until I think it was 2015 when they released their archive box set. And all those were included in that. But this is the first time any of them are going to be available on vinyl. It also has this really cool pearlized looking album artwork. I already have a copy of this on vinyl, so I'm not sure if I'm going to grab a copy of it this week. I don't know, I'll stream those extra tracks and see if I like them. And $41 is kind of like at the top end of what I really want to pay for that one. So if I can get it for a couple bucks cheaper, maybe I'll grab a copy of it. There's also Still Living in the Past by Jethro Tull coming out this week. This came out back in 1972 as Living in the Past. So this is on 2 LPs. This going to run you about $35. This is the new Steven Wilson remix. So I think it was back in 2010 or 2011. Steven Wilson started going through Jethro Tull's catalog from the beginning and started remixing and remastering their albums. So this is a compilation of singles, there's B-sides on here, there's remixes, all recorded between 1968 and 1971, which is my favorite period from the band. That early, more blues rock period. Those first, 3 or 4 albums, I think are the absolute best the band ever did. And for the most part, I like what Steven Wilson has done with those albums. So I'm sure this one's going to be just the same. I don't have a copy of this on pre-order yet, but I probably will grab a copy of it. And this album's kind of due to get reissued because last time it was reissued was in 2016, and then the one previous to that was 1984. So it's a long time without getting pressing of this one. Like I said, I don't have a copy of this on pre-order, but I probably will before the week's end. You've also got Masque by Kansas getting reissued. This came out back in 1975. It was their 3rd studio album. 50th anniversary release is going to be in yellow vinyl. There's a music on vinyl release. It's limited to 1,000 copies. It's going to run you about $39. So Masque isn't as fondly remembered as the other big albums from the 70s, Point of No Return and Left Overture. But without what they did on Masque, I don't think you would have had either one of those albums. This album really laid the foundation for what they would do over those next several albums. And I think this album where Kansas really kind of found their sound. And I've long looked at Masque kind of similar to Pink Floyd's Metal, where Metal was the album where Pink Floyd transitioned to what they would become. And Masque is kind of a similar album. I don't think it's as good as those other 2 albums, but I think it's just a notch behind it. And this is another album that hasn't been pressed on vinyl in a really long time. This is actually a reissue of the 2019 MOV release, except for that release I think it was on red vinyl. This one's on yellow. And before that there was a 2013 reissue, but prior to that I think it was 1978 was the last time this album was pressed. If you're a casual Kansas fan, if you haven't listened to this one in a really long time, I highly recommend checking it out. It's probably one I'll end up grabbing. I guess I should add that music on vinyl releases are pressed in the Netherlands. So this one actually was released a week ago. So if you look online, it actually says it was released last week, but it typically takes an extra week or two before it hits stores in the US. So that's why it's got a release date for this week. There's also I Love Life, Thank You by Mac Miller coming out this week. So this was released back in 2011. It was a 6th mixtape. It's going to run you about $33. This is actually his 3rd mixtape that he released over a 14-month span. It's the first time it's ever been available on vinyl. And this was originally released to celebrate Mac Miller hitting 1 million followers on Twitter. I think it really helped showcase that youthful charisma that he had earlier in his career. And the song Love Lost on here ended up being a viral hit for him, even though it wasn't released as a single. And it helped this mixtape reach, I think it was number 22 on the Billboard 200. Unfortunately, I didn't get into Mac's music until after his death, and as I've gotten more into his music over the last couple years, this is definitely one I've been waiting to get released on vinyl. You've also got Mayday Parade, Monster in the Closet getting reissued. Came out back in 2013. It was their 4th studio album. It's 2 LPs. It's going to be on Orchid vinyl. It's going to run about $33. So it's actually a reissue of the 2023 10th anniversary pressing. The second disc has 6 previously unreleased tracks on there, and also has a D-side etching. The artwork that's on this album actually came from the 2013 tour edition of the album, so it's not the standard artwork. So I think it's kind of cool to kind of tie it back to the earlier pressing. Commercially, it did really well. It hit number 10 on the Billboard 200, which I think is really good for a pop-punk album in the early 2010s. And the first single from the album, Ghosts, hit number 46 on the US Rock Singles chart, which I think helped kind of push the album up. They're a band that I just started getting into over the last probably 12 to 18 months. It's one I've only heard a couple of songs off of, so I definitely need to stream it and check it out this week. There's also Let It Roll, songs by George Harrison getting reissued this week. Came out back in 2009. It's a 2 LP release, but it's kind of pricey. It's going to run you about $60, but this is the first compilation ever released from George's career where it covered his entire solo career. The Beatles were this big, gigantic global force, and I've always looked at George Harrison as probably the most underappreciated and overlooked person in that foursome. And after the breakup of the band, I think George Harrison really quickly established himself as a solo musician. You know, he released All Things Must Pass, which became this huge album, which I think did a perfect job of showcasing how talented he really was as a musician. And this 2 LP compilation has 19 tracks from across his brilliant career, all newly remastered. It's one that, $60 is a lot for me. So if I can get this maybe down like around $40, I'll probably grab a copy of it. 60 is a lot for me. So we'll see if I end up eventually grabbing a copy of that one. You've also got a couple of Billy Joel albums getting reissued this week. The first one is Nylon Curtain. Came out back in 1982. It was the 8th studio album. It's going about $27. I think the Nylon Curtain is a victim of being sandwiched in between 2 incredible albums, Glass Houses and An Innocent Man. And it wasn't as commercially successful as a lot of his other albums from that period, but it still sold over 2 million copies here in the US, I think at number 7 on the Billboard 200. And this album is a little different than some of his other 80s albums because it has more of a serious tone to it. It's more personal, it's more introspective, and it's an album that I think, I overlooked this one for a long time also. It's probably within the last, I'd say probably 10 or 15 years, I started going back through and listening to some of his other albums, some of his not so popular albums. And this one became one of my favorite albums of his from the 80s. Second reissue this week from Billy Joel is River of Dreams. Came out back in 1993. It was his 12th studio album. It's going to run about $27. So by 1993, music had really changed, especially from his last album he released before this was Stormfront in 89. So music was in a much different place by the time this album came out. And this album showed that his style of pop and rock mixed with a little bit of soul, a little bit of gospel was still popular. It hit number 1 on the Billboard 200. He was nominated for 4 Grammys off of this album. And other than We Didn't Start the Fire, the title track off this album was his best charting single since Uptown Girl in 1983. This album also stands out as the last traditional album that Billy Joel recorded. So then the third and final album from Billy Joel this week is Fantasies and Delusions. Came out back in 2001. It was his 13th and final studio album. First time it's been ever available on vinyl. It's going to run you about $38. And this is a very different style of album from Billy Joel. So this is a classical album, all composed by Billy Joel, but it's actually performed by Richard Young-Ju. And it stands out as a showcase of Billy Joel's lifelong love of classical music. As expected, it didn't have any mainstream success, but it did chart really well on the classical charts. And this was more of a passion project for Billy Joel as a way to kind of wrap up his career. So last week, all the Doors Rhino High Fidelity releases got reissued, and they're available in stores rather than just being exclusive to Rhino's website. There's a couple other ones coming out this week. First one you got is Television, Marquee Moon. Came out back in 1977. It was their debut studio album. It's going to run you about $40. So initially, when this album was first released by Rhino, it was limited to 5,000 copies, and they were all numbered. And then after those sold out, they did release an unnumbered version. I think it was back in January where they put the unnumbered version up on their website, and it was exclusive only to the website. You weren't able to get copies in store. So I like that they're doing these, a couple months later, they're doing these store versions of these albums. And all the Rhino High Fidelity releases are all mastered by Kevin Gray from the original analog tapes. They're pressed to optimal. I do have a couple of them. They sound absolutely fantastic. And Marquee Moon was a highly important and influential album because it took that 70s punk style, had a little more of a melodic twist to it, incorporated some jazz elements to it, and it had this whole new sound. And the band would go on and influence other bands for years to come. It's an album that, I overlooked for a long time. I don't have a copy of it on vinyl. I probably will grab the Rhino version of it this week. And the last album I got on my list is the self-titled debut album from the Cars, released in 1978. Same thing, Rhino High Fidelity release. It's mastered by Kevin Gray. It's going to run you about $40. I've long considered this one of the greatest debut albums of the 70s. That's the album that launched the incredible career from the Cars. Rolling Stone magazine actually had this listed. I think it was like number 353 on their list of the 500 greatest albums of all time. I do have a copy of this on vinyl, but it's an early 80s pressing. It's pretty beat up. I need to get a new copy of it, but I've spent a lot on records lately, so I probably need to wait a couple weeks before I grab this one, but I will get it eventually. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing this week. Like I said, I'm probably going to have that Jethro Tull album pre-ordered. I'll probably grab that Mac Miller. There's a couple other ones I'll stream and listen to, but I don't know. Let me know what you guys are looking forward to. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.